Tonight is May 8th, and this is a live recording of session 36 of our D&D campaign, Dungeons & Drogans. Last session, the Drogans descended to the next level of the Shadowfell Keep, entering a Cathedral of Shadows. An Orcus underpriest led a pair of axe-wielding humans in prayer. Blood flowed in rivers on the floor, draining into a large pit. Wreckage immediately charged towards the underpriest, as three vampires snuck up on the rest of the party from behind. The two humans charged Wreckage, defending the underpriest, who also attacked the Goliath with dark magic, badly wounding him. Stephen predicted this would be an epic fail in the making. On round 2, Wreckage kept charging at the priest, provoking an opportunity attack from both axe-wielding humans, who struck him down to 5 out of 52 hit points. The underpriest drew his mace and beat Wreckage in the face into unconsciousness. By round 3, all the vampires were dead. By round 6, Wreckage had failed 2 death saves, and Autumn was down to 7 HP. Without a party tank, there was nothing to stop the squishy characters from being walloped. On round 7, the priest took Autumn down, and Autumn failed her first death save. On round 8, Wreckage bled to death on the dais, and Autumn failed her second death save. On round 9, Autumn bled to death as the party finished off their opponents. The battle was won, but the cost was high. The surviving party members took a short rest, knowing an extended rest was a luxury they could not afford with Kalarel so close to completing his ritual. So Coltaine, Sorrow, and Wintier prepared to descend the chains leading down into the pit. They realized that the underpriest may still be alive because Sorrow claims it is a 50-foot drop into a pool of blood. And that's where we were. Did Wintier want Wreckage's armor for this battle?
No, he did not.
Is that a time issue, or is that just you literally don't want it?
Yeah, I don't want the -1 penalty.
Alright. Alright, Sorrow, Coltaine, and Wintier grab hold of the chains and start their descent. The iron is slick with blood, so you're being careful not to just drop. And you begin your descent into a nightmare. So as you are climbing down these chains, crimson streams spill from above and form a shallow pool of blood in the center of this enormous chamber. A yawning black portal dominates the northern wall of the chamber. Something strains against the darkness within, as if it were a thin film keeping back a vicious, clawed beast. A circle of blazing runes has been inscribed on the floor before the portal. Opposite the portal, a massive statue of Orcus stands. It points towards the darkness with a skull-capped wand. To the east, steps rise to a platform where a pit is flanked by 2 smaller statues of Orcus. To the west, another set of steps ascends to a 10-foot-high ledge supporting an altar of bone and several wide pillars. Before the black portal stands a human wearing a horned helm and carrying a skull-capped rod. I believe only Coltaine recognizes this as... well, no, Coltaine and Sorrow recognize this as Kalarel. For Wintier, he's just some guy, but you do recognize that he is holding by the throat the underpriest that you had sent down the pit, who seems injured but very much alive.
Oh, says Winter, this guy must be on our side. Hey, do you want to help us save the world?
At the sound of Wintier's voice echoing throughout the chamber, Kalarel turns his head upward to spot you guys climbing down. Grimacing, he turns back to the underpriest, who he's holding by the throat up on his tippy toes and says, "You have failed me for the last time, Reginald," and then hurls him backwards into the black portal where the claws swallow him up as his screams are quickly silenced and he disappears into the evil portal. As you continue to make your descent, Kalarel casually climbs the steps to the west to stand before the altar, grabs a book, and begins to chant a low, droning prayer. Also in this room, near the altar, you spot that little imp that had retreated from the battle where you met Sorrow. There is also a host of undead sentinels, and two individuals. One is a human woman wearing dwarven scale mail armor and wielding a maul that is giving off a frosty aura. The other is a dwarf wearing dwarven chainmail armor, wielding a warhammer and a holy symbol.
Sorrow knows nothing of these people, I assume?
She just knows that they work for Kalarel. And she knows that their names are Morgan and Wrecked. Let's roll initiative.
Don't forget +2.
I rolled a total of 15.
Sorrow rolls total 23.
Coltaine rolls a total of 11.
As Coltaine, Wintier, and Sorrow touch down into this pool of blood, an undead creature with white skin and wearing wizardly robes, albeit quite aged and tattered, steps down from the steps to the east and launches a bolt of purple energy at Wintier.
Ah, purple's my color.
And because of that, Wintier dodges. Sorrow.
Sorrow is going to use a scorching burst on the skeleton to her east. That skeleton's been target number 1, and the white skin thing has been target number 2. 14 versus reflex, and 11 versus reflex.
And Sorrow misses with her flames.
And I'm also going to shift. Actually, I'm gonna move. Can I? Are we technically swimming, or are our feet touching the ground in this pool?
Just a moment. Well, that's a glaring oversight on the part of the creators. They
Another
mention
one.
everything. They mention everything else in this room but the pool. Unless they just want to group this with the blood, but let's say it is shallow enough that it does not impede you.
Okay.
But no, I'm not gonna be a dick.
About falling into it. Yeah, that really doesn't make sense.
Maybe he landed on... Maybe he got healed up just enough to get strangled.
Regardless, he got killed anyway.
Winter dives into the portal to ask him how he survived the fall.
Coltaine asks Kalarel if he can work for him.
Kalarel steps forward, baring his teeth, and points his rod at Coltaine, sending forth a bolt of black energy. Coltaine is struck for 8 necrotic damage, and he is weakened. Save ends. The imp flies forward, casts a spell on Coltaine, but Coltaine shrugs it off. The skeletons, armed with both long swords and long bows. One of them takes a shot at Coltaine, but Coltaine deflects it with his shield. Wintier dodges an arrow. Wintier is up.
Alright, I think focusing the white is the agreed upon strategy. Yes? So Winter positions himself so that he can mark the white as his quarry. I believe there would be sufficient.
What? No, it's not the closest.
This is closer.
If you want to be closer to the white, you have to get past.
Really? Yeah.
So Sorrow and Wintier moving closer to this dark portal.
Winter ain't afraid of no portal. So now he does the old combo of marking his quarry of the white and giving him the 1-2 punch twin strike. First is a 18 versus AC, possibly hitting for 11 damage. Second is probably a miss with 13 versus AC.
The first arrow strikes the white.
Then there's a bonus 4 damage from the quarry.
Another arrow buries itself in Coltaine's shield. A skeleton draws an arrow, aims at Wintier, and fires. The arrow penetrates the leather armor just barely. If Wintier had been wearing slightly better armor, he would not have been struck for 5 damage and slowed until the end of the skeleton's next turn. Wintier down to 25 out of 30. Coltaine is up.
Seeing that his allies are dealing with their foes to the east, Coltaine attempts to take care of the west and charges at the nearest skeleton, striking it with a Viper's Strike. But he only gets a 14.
Coltaine misses the skeleton.
And then he attempts to shrug off the weakness. But he gets an 8 and fails.
The skeleton draws a longsword and retaliates against Coltaine and slashes into him for 5 damage. The human woman stands there, turning to the dwarf, looking at him expectantly. Now that Sorrow and Wintier are closer to the portal, they can hear whispers issuing forth. For the most part, the whispers are unintelligible, but you think you can hear the portal whisper the name Kalarel.
And Winter says to the portal, "Oh hey, we're looking for that guy too. Do you know where he is?"
The claws reach out of the portal and strike Sorrow some 20 feet away. 12 damage, and Sorrow is dragged 1 square closer. Sorrow down to 20 out of 33 hit points. As Coltaine recoils from the sword wound, he doesn't see the arrow that comes at him and pegs him for 5 damage, slowing him. Coltaine down to 25 out of 45. An arrow whizzes by Sorrow, and a second arrow strikes Wintier for 5 damage. Wintier slowed until the end of this skeleton's next turn. The dwarf turns to the human and shouts, "Now be the time to strike, Morgan!" He bears his holy symbol at the white and mutters a prayer.
Does that guy sound like the blacksmith to you guys?
Well, it's slightly different actually.
No, they're all the same to me.
The white lights up with divine energy, and you guys now find it easier to strike him. It's like painting a target. That ends round 1. The white spins around to the dwarf and says with a voice from the grave, You treacherous mongrel." As the white spins around to face them, Morgan runs away in fear. Sorrow.
Sorrow's gonna get the hell away from the portal, and she tells Winter that he should do the same too when he has a chance.
Thanks, because I didn't notice when it hit you. I'm just standing here waiting patiently, because I like to let people take turns.
Well, you're an elf. I can't trust you with anything. I'm gonna do a Scorching Burst centered on the Shallow Grave White. The second attack being the skeleton to the north. Alright, attack number 1 is 13, attack number 2 is 11, and attack number 3 is 19. Hits for 11 fire damage, and it's all versus reflex.
A vertical column of golden flames descends from above. The white and the skeleton to the north manage to move out of the way just in time, but the second skeleton, rather, the third target, is incinerated. Kalarel launches another black bolt at Coltaine. This time Coltaine grits his teeth and shakes it off. The imp tries to cast its spell again, but Coltaine is unshakable. An arrow comes at him from the side, he spins around and deflects it with his shield. An arrow strikes Sorrow in the leg, 5 damage, slowing her Sorrow down to 15 out of 33.
Now we're all in the slow boat together.
Wintier.
So Wintier, of his own volition, moves away from the portal towards the steps that has the skeletons. One
Wintier
dead
is
skeleton.
slowed, right?
Yeah, so I think you can only move half.
Isn't it your speed becomes 2?
Yep.
Oh. Look at that. So he moves 2 to the right. He's still got a clearish line of sight to the white, right?
The white is taking cover behind a skeleton.
Well, then I perform a twin strike. If the skeleton goes down on the first hit, then the second hit would go to the white. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the first attack probably misses with a 10. But I think a 27 ought to be enough to do 2 damage to the skeleton.
That's right, the first arrow is way off target, but the second strikes the skeleton. The skeleton collapses to the ground, falling apart, a pile of bones, but the white immediately utters an incantation and the bones reanimate and stand up.
Aw, come on, guy. But it stands up with an arrow sticking out of it.
Yes.
Cool.
Coltaine dodges an arrow. Coltaine up.
Coltaine calls out, "Comrades! It seems we have some unlikely allies. Our chances are better now than ever before." And in doing so, he inspires himself to regain hit points. And then he takes another swipe at the skeleton in front of him, using Viper Strike, for a total of 24 and 7 damage.
Coltaine chops through the skeleton and it collapses in a pile of bone. That does not reanimate.
And he slowly makes his way towards the second skeleton before attempting to shake off the weakness. And with a 13, he succeeds.
Morgan the coward suddenly regains her composure and rejoins the battle. She advances on the white, raises her maul, and quavering misses.